John and self-portraiture, they go hand in hand. As soon as he decided being an artist was about making this kind of statement, which the public would recognise, as it were, as he walked along the street, I think then the self-portraits almost automatically began to flow. So we saw all these early self-portraits done when he was a student. They all have a kind of larger than life, heroic, he's not hiding his light under a bushel. He's a big artist, an important artist, that also that being an artist is important. I think all of the self-portraits from that stage show that aspect of his character, personality. I think when you come to the City Art Centre, you'll certainly see the whole range of John's self-portraits, from, as it were, from the beginning, from the very beginning to the very end. I mean, it's quite a journey. It's quite a moving journey too, I think. Because once you get past the early student heroic portraits, as it were, then you begin to stumble across slightly when he begins to kind of self-question and ask different kind of questions completely. So we get a completely different type of portrait, which shows and which tells us really the kind of predicaments that he's in.
I've always been a great admirer of John Bellany, so it's been a real privilege to have worked on this show. One of the fascinating things about the exhibition is that many of the works on display have never been seen before. So it added a new dimension to my appreciation of Bellany as an artist. You can trace Bellany's life and artistic development from his early beginnings as an art student right through to, we're showing his last drawing, for example, and a very, very late self-portrait. And all the different stages in his life are represented in this exhibition. So by the end of it, you'll feel that you actually have a deep knowledge of Bellany as a person, as well as a great appreciation of him as an artist.
He wanted everyone to know he was an artist. So he grew his hair long, he wore all the right kind of outfits, as it were. I should say, of course, that being an artist in the early 60s wasn't something the public warmed to, so he was taking a little bit of a chance, because the public would yell at us all about getting haircuts and do this, do that, and you're a bunch of slackers, a bunch of wasters. Being an art student was bad news. But he was determined to, again, that's part of the character that emerged, I think, quite early on. He was determined to go his own way, as it were, to prove his own points. No matter what, he was going to be an artist. He's there. He's always there. He has to be there, because that's his way of authenticating the idea that he's painting about.
I think that this exhibition will demonstrate that John Bellany is a major figure, not only within the history of Scottish art, but in a much wider context, within British and even more so within European art. Bellany made self-portraiture a central feature of his art, and he used self-portraiture to pursue the highly autobiographical dimension of his expressionist painting and drawing and printmaking. He came to prints relatively later in his career. I think in the early 70s really is the beginning of his prints, but he took to prints in a very enthusiastic way. I think he liked the idea of collaborating with other people in the print workshop. This brought out the best of him. In fact, the print section I think is really quite interesting. You get another side of John coming through there. His favourite phrase, joie de vivre, in the prints, which tend not to be found in the paintings, which tend to be much more epic and tragic.
No matter where he went, there'd be a little sketchbook in his pocket or a bigger one in his bag. You could say even by the end of 4 years at Edinburgh College of Art, he had a number of sketchbooks. He was building up a huge repertoire of images, of ideas, etc., of compositions. So that continued. That went on throughout his life. And the idea that he was just a guy that a lot of people mistakenly think he was just a guy who went into the studio, a white canvas on the easel, and he would just dip a brush into a load of paint and off he went. No, there was always a lot of preparation. In that sense, he was a bit of a classicist, actually, that he prepared his ideas, very, very particularly. And we look at the sketchbooks, and we see all these drawings, all these tryouts, as it were, for a particular painting, with lots of notes, colour notes, little notes. And the interesting thing about many of the notes is that they're very faintly written, as opposed to his letters, which were flamboyant and big handwriting and all. These are tiny little notes which are almost impossible to read, so they were extremely personal. They were only meant for him. So again, that's why I think the sketchbooks are so important, that we have his private musings, his way of approaching a painting, his way of thinking about a painting, his way of thinking about his visual thinking is exposed to the full in the sketchbooks. On the one hand, I'm seeing paintings that I haven't seen for 60 years. Paintings and drawings, and obviously that's kind of exciting. That's really, it takes me back. You can see how good he was, because I think 60 years on, obviously you've seen so much, you've learned so much, you've talked about painting you've talked about painting for 60 odd years, and you see these things again and you really see them with a fresh eye, and they're astonishing. He's there, somehow or other he's there. He finds it, everything he's feeling, everything he's experiencing. So we go from the very first, his penetrating studies of himself as a student, to the very end when he can hardly see. He's literally falling to bits. He's blind, but he's still working. I mean, what does that say? I mean, that says everything about the spirit, indomitable spirit that he had within him. And again, it's all about art and the power of art and being an artist.